Hello and welcome to the Learning Luminaries, the podcast where every episode I talk to an inspiring innovator about how we can make the world a brighter place using the unique light within us. This week, I am super excited to be joined by visionary artist Alex Coma. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly,
Yeah.
who has been featured in artistic galleries in lots of different places, showing off visionary work that connects the conscious mind to our subconscious realms with a combination of their own intuitive gifts and also this natural quest as a spiritual seeker like myself. Their work is really evocative of the intuition itself, and it beckons viewers, whether I haven't seen any of it in person but just online, it beckons you to feel deeply within yourself as you're interacting with these pieces, which is so incredible. So thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to my show.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for this beautiful intro.
You're welcome. I have been really looking for aligned guests who I feel like have just something really bright to share with my audience. And so when we crossed paths, I was like, oh yeah, this person. So I really actually wanted to start talking about your art first by introducing a piece that I had seen most recently. It was huge. It was the one that I forget the name of it, but it had the lapis lazuli pigment in it.
Yeah.
And so I was
Yeah.
just wondering if you could tell people about that piece.
Yeah, that's the most recent one, and it kind of it opens up a new chapter for me because like
Mm.
often my things are descriptive of my inner space and what I'm doing in my life as at the same time. And so like my new project is Rose Umbra, which is like again working with others. So most of my career was focused on like, you want to show your work there, show your work here. And so uh, this kind of last year I've been working on my biggest creation, which is Rose Umbra, which is a project that is for others, for the community, for healing the world in some senses. And this is the first painting I've done after this transition towards this new project. And
Mm.
I feel because of this mental shift, like that happened within me with like focusing on my career, and now it's like focusing on how I can impact the world and help people. There's a big shift, and therefore this painting I feel is a bit more impersonal. It talks about more global issues, a bit about global energies. The other paintings, as we were discussing a bit earlier, I felt are teachers. They are mirrors for me to integrate deep spiritual concepts that otherwise would remain abstract and hard to kind of integrate and use. So this painting is more of a like it's integrated in my life. So it was created, first of all, like the main imagery that is in the center of the painting, because there's like many parts to the painting, was from a place I visited in Spain. And when I was on location, like I had gone through this little adventure on my own and found this little entrance that was barricaded, and I sneaked in, and I arrived to this place with this wall with all the little windows in it. And I knew when I was there, I was like, oh, okay, this will end up in a painting. I don't know when, I don't know how. I knew this was something that I had to understand and develop. So that's how I started to paint this piece with this image in mind. But then, like I was traveling over the last year, and I was working on my computer to do the render of this painting before painting it. And a lot of symbols were presented to me like in a very magical way, like encountering like the main symbol is the ankh on top in
Mm-hmm.
gold. Well, ankh usually doesn't have the like three top parts, three top lines like you see. There's a little twist to it. And again, like this, I'm not even sure how to interpret it. I have ideas, but usually it reveals itself with time. But I got the insight to do this symbol because I was wondering, like, what should I put up there? Because it seems like relevant to put something. I'll let you know a bit later why. But I was like in this space, and I had in the shower actually, and there was this kind of semi-transparent cloth, like the shower curtain, and through it I could see outside, and it would just blur things a little bit. And I saw this tree, and through the curtain, with the highlights of the tree because of the light, I saw the ankh with exactly these three little things on top. And I knew, like, as I saw it, I'm like, okay, that's the symbol. Like, that's how spirit is talking to me through my
Mm.
life, showing me what to do with my paintings. And so it's like an instant download. I'm like, okay, yes, this is it. And before, the main part was like the center, which I told you about, this paint place. Well, this was supposed to be the full size painting, which was 4 feet by 6 feet. I thought that was going to be it. But then, as I was house sitting, and as I was going to bed, a frame just fell off the wall and fell on the floor beside me. Like, there was no movement, nothing. And like, you get a bit scared. I look it up, and it's this Egyptian goddess Nut that
Mm.
just is on the wall. And again, it's not my house. I don't live there. I'm house sitting, so I didn't know it was there. But then as soon as I pick it up, I'm like, oh, okay, I see. And then I kind of understood intuitively, okay, that has to be integrated in the painting.
So just
And so
for
the
like people who haven't seen the painting, I'll describe it from my own perspective. Essentially, it is like a beautiful portal or like window, and the outside of it has this dark, rich lapis lazuli, like night sky in like filigree, like framing almost that frames this very like realistic um setting that has all of these like windows in the stone wall, and the light that's casting through it is super beautiful. And so it's like this really powerful juxtaposition of like the sky and the world with this very like archaeological like, or not, architectural as well, both the kind of background in the middle. Carry on.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I knew it was going to be integrated in. Yeah, so I didn't know what the full story of the painting was, and it gets revealed to me with time. But when I saw that this frame of this Egyptian goddess was there, I started to do research. Like, what is this? Where can we find this in Egyptian folklore? What does she represent archetypally? And then what does the center represent? And anyways, like, you can ask me more questions. I'm gonna try to simplify it a little bit because it can be a very, like, there's so much depth to it. I can talk about it for a long time. But in sum, it's the foreground, no, the background furthest from us is golden in color. It's more warm tones. It talks about the soul, but also about the masculine polarity, the solar principles. And the outside is very blue. It's very moon-like. It's very feminine in nature, flowy, as this entity represents. And the lapis lazuli encourages this as well, this kind of psychic, feminine, intuitive part. But in the whole, it's about uniting both. And because I told you it's like a more impersonal message, it was a way for me to understand and to be able to share this this new paradigm where, like, we come from this solar, very masculine society. Like, for the past 2000 years, it's very patriarchal, and it has kind of went to an extreme, as we all can observe, with the towers everywhere, and like, it's very masculine and war and like all these kind of extreme qualities of masculinity which are unbalanced, right? And now this kind of new feminine energy kind of needs to come rebalance the, because we I come from the understanding that we both have both polarities within us.
Mm-hmm.
um, but what has been predominating, like dominating the past 2000 years, is the intellect, the pursuit of higher ideas, and but to the detriment of feeling and of understanding. Understanding is a key word here, like understanding the bigger picture, which is a feminine quality if from the philosophy I study. And it's about uniting both. So That's why the center part of the painting is there's lots of gold. It's the solar self. It's the soul. Soul is also the Spanish word for sun,
Mm.
solar. So it's all connected. And the temple that I use on the outside is the last standing feminine temple in Egypt, the Temple of Hathor. So a lot of those temples have been destroyed, and there's just these very big, like masculine solar, like these big pyramids that are dedicated to the solar gods, like Osiris. That's
Mm.
what we can see still in Egypt. But this one is one of the best preserved feminine ones from like more than 2000, from the era before the masculine polarities. So it's kind of bringing back this ancient wisdom that they would carry, and they would, like, it would be part of society, right? To praise women and to understand the magic of it.
That's beautiful. I
So
really resonate with what you said. I have so many different thoughts about this. I'm so glad that we're talking. So, from my own journey and my own experience, a lot of my work ever since I was a little kid has been connecting with the archetype of the dark goddess. So, when we talk about Nut, the goddess that you had painted, she is very like connected to Nyx. She's connected to a lot of different primordial goddesses throughout different cultures that represent
mhm,
the darkness itself, the night sky, the
yeah.
expansion of everything. And so I think that that's such a beautiful like idea. And yesterday I was doing this breathwork meditation with myself where I was feeling into the like the void and like the dark space within inside of my own body, within inside of my own like womb, to be able to rebirth like myself and my own ideas. It was actually really powerful. It's one of the most like powerful breath works I've
Mhm,
ever experienced. And I had essentially brought this part of myself that was part of the collective that felt like it was completely undeserving and unworthy of love, like into my body. Like it shivered away from touch because there was like this part of our collective conscious that has just been so like made to feel so unworthy, and I was tapping into that larger collective feeling, and so I brought that into my body. And then
mhm,
as I was doing that, I started to feel like I was in a dense jungle that was, it was at night, and I could feel like all of the wetness from the air, and I could feel all the animals that were alive that I couldn't see. And it was like I was just nurturing this energy, this collective soul that felt like it was unworthy of being loved. And then I brought it all the way into my body. And then in that was what was going on in the astral. And then in the physical realm, I was focusing on absorbing as much light from my environment as I could into my body so that the alchemical process like would be able to lift it
mhm,
in vibration. And then I would focus on breathing the energy from like the base of my spine like all the way up and then back down and then up and then back down. And then and I felt like I was being guided by like the night sky goddess herself, who has many many names. And
yeah.
then at the end of that, I like ended up pushing out all of this energy, almost like giving like birth back into myself and back into the world of being able to truly believe and anchor into this idea of understanding, like you were saying, and of being
Mhm.
understood by people, and of being loved and being embraced in all of these different ways. So it's really powerful that we're having this conversation where we talk about the the need for balance between the light and the dark. That's something that's also come up a lot for me
Mm.
over the last couple of weeks as I've been studying, is like we are so often like oh, there's so many big ideas. Okay, so the collective consciousness is essentially this, for people who don't understand, is essentially this field of knowledge and wisdom that spans all space and time, that we get all of our ideas from, that holds all of our symbolism, it holds all of our memories, things like that. And then the collective shadow is created by systemic generational repressed fear, shame, guilt, that has been created by multi-generational experiences of like pain and anguish that people haven't been able to process, which is how we
Mm.
get really large scale systemic injustice. So I think that when we're looking at the things that are happening in the world, when we look at all of this like hyper masculine that you've been talking about, a lot of that is also like integrating in the shadow of this collective, right? And like collectively we feel rejected, collectively there is this like us versus them kind of feeling that I've been really curious about and really feeling into. And so being able to know that the way that we create peace is by creating understanding and by embracing the feminine qualities of receptivity, I just think is such a profound notion. Because when you start to accept yourself and truly know that like that you're not othered, right? And that you can be included, and that this vision, and that in order to truly have your vision understood, you have to be able to share it with other people, and you have to be able to work with other people and be understood from all these different angles and perspectives of people who have totally different experiences than you. And that difference is one of our human strengths rather than something that creates more divisiveness. I really hope that the more that we have these conversations, the more that we have these ideas, that this idea goes out into the collective and we're able to lean more into understanding rather than rejecting.
Yeah, that's very profound. I think you're tapping into something very like that I've also been tapping into, that's very present. Like it's been present, but I think like from my perspective, I feel like you were like right on the cusp. Like it's a transition that has been going on for so long, like 150 years, some people say, into the age of Aquarius, and it's exactly what you described. It's having your individuality, but that is connected to the all. So it needs both polarities of receptiveness and like to emit also. So
I love that you said the age of Aquarius because so I travel around the United States and I work at Renaissance festivals. And I like to say that I'm participating in the Aquarian Renaissance. And I think that you're absolutely an artist of the Aquarian Renaissance with the content of the things that you create. But when we look at Renaissances throughout history, it's this awakening of ideology, it's this expansion of consciousness and the way that we interpret the world. It's also where we have innovations in science and art and math and the way that we relate to one another. And so by being able to embrace this like age of Aquarius, new paradigm, Aquarian Renaissance thing, really what people are talking about when they say that is that we're coming into a deeper understanding of what it means to be a collective whole rather than a series of individuals who are kind of like isolated and scattered, which is also so interesting to think about all of this happening at the same time that we're having global things that affect people on a global scale, like pandemics and conflict and supply chain changes and things like that, that I think can be really intimidating and really scary when you're looking around at the world and you're like, well, these people are in mass conflict. And there's just basically what I think is happening within that is that like we look at all of these global things that are affecting people on a very real level that makes them almost like question their mortality and question their connectivity. And that can feel very overwhelming to a normal person who doesn't know about astrology, who doesn't have a strong connection with their spirit and is starting to like have these spiritual experiences. And so what I kind of seek to do on this podcast is help illuminate what's happening inside of that collective consciousness, why it is that we're picking up on these threads, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's why I think our paths are aligned too, because it seems like this is just like almost like a cloud that's above us, and the people that are sensitive enough are just tapping into it, and we kind of all have similar visions, but with our own exactly our own individual flavor to add to it.
Absolutely.
So I think it's cool too to even for me with Rosenbrough to start seeing the bigger picture through these interviews, through these podcasts, and to kind of create this this collective, like I see it real, and every time I talk to someone, it gives me a different angle of that full picture of what's going on. So
Absolutely.
we all kind of know one version of it, but now like through these discussions we start seeing the full spectrum of color of this new aeon, you can call it.
I love the use of the word aeon and calling it a spectrum of color because that is so true. I've been saying that there is a wound inside of our planet because our planet is a conscious sentient being and human beings are the cells inside of the planet's body that processes thought. And because of that, we are all healing one wound. But because we have the gift of being individual egos, like we're healing it from all of our own individual perspectives. And then as we shared, like, this is what helped me, then we are sharing, like, what is healing this larger collective planet as a whole.
Yeah, and I think also on the esoteric side, like what I feel is we're being called, even if it's unconscious, is to connect with our soul, because our soul is really what is connecting us to everyone else's soul instead of the ego, like the threefold nature of ourselves. Like the intermediary is the soul between the higher realms, which would be like the masters and the people that are actually using our individuality to create collective changes. And so the soul, if you, when we connect to it by kind of like it's a long-term goal, because like we come from an ego, right? That's what, especially when you're young, right? The younger you are, the more you're developing that ego. And then like I'm guessing like in your 20s 30s you start slowly to understand it, and hopefully if you're on a spiritual path you let go of it, so you know like this point, you know, the point in time space, and then you can go around it and without losing yourself. And I think that's the, I think should be our aim, is to connect with the soul, which is egoless and therefore will act for the greater good. It will not act for personal interests. And so I think you're describing this also with your own terms, and I think it's very accurate what I'm from what I'm experiencing as well.
Which is so beautiful as well, because as we lean deeper into the soul, we start to express more of our individuality from a less egoic way. Like when
Yeah,
you're expressing your soul in an ego driven way, you're self-conscious, right? You're wondering like, oh, are they going to accept me? Is this good enough? Like it has to be like this, it has to be like that. But when
yeah,
you're expressing from that place of being the world soul and of being connected to that larger sort of like anima mundi, then you're able to express this unique spark that can only be expressed through you, that has a contribution to a larger collective, because
yeah,
there's a reason why we've fragmented into all of these different bodies, and it's because there's so much value in our individual perspective. And so it's almost like going out to go back in and going in to go back out, if that makes sense. Something that I was curious to hear your take on is, we talk about the new aeon, we talk about the new paradigm. What does that look like as opposed to what's happening right now?
yeah. Like I can give you my taste of it, but like it's a, like you say, I think we all individually will know what it's about for the collective, but from like lectures and observations I can tell you, yeah, it's the age of Aquarius. And if you look at the qualities of Aquarius, it is this innovation, like kind of independent but also always connected. Like Aquarius is a air sign, but aqua, you know, it's water, so it's like the water aspect of air. So you can imagine like how telecommunications have been evolved through air, you know, through the ether. The age of Aquarius would have started with the beginning of technologies, with the telegram hundreds of years ago. And so this is kind of the future, and there is the dark side of it that we're seeing too. There's always two polarities. Like Aquarius is also connected to the 11th house in astrology, which is gains and profits. And so it's the houses of the masses as well. So everyone connected together. But the downside of that can be one per profiting of all the masses.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm seeing. Like dark side is like these multi-billionaire that are just profiting over the collective, instead of the opposite would be the collective and being empowered and controlling by just being individual selves. Or like you mentioned, this allegory of being a cell in a body, in a bigger body, all working together. Well, the dark side, like I really perceive that right now we're in the spiritual war, like and to the, who's gonna get the final word? Is it gonna be the, you know, with the the elites that are having these Bilderberg meetings in secret, trying to plan for this new world order for 2030. That's what I'm perceiving, that they want to kind of put their claws in as much as they can, because they know that from my studies also that the we are pretty much in the center. Actually 2030 would be like the dividing mark between the past, age of Pisces, and the age of Aquarius. Oh no, sorry, it would not be. It would be the end of the transition. So they say that in 2012, you know, when the Mayan calendar ended, it would have been the center, so the dividing line between the age of Pisces and Aquarius. And there's 18 years before and 18 years after for this kind of the dust to kind of move into transition. And so adding 18 years to 2012, 2030, and that's like the agenda that you can see everywhere, that all the people that control the WHO and the Bilderberg group. So I can see that they know these things. They are aware of astrology, and they know that they have these last few years to create the change they want, because whatever is there after 2030, I don't know if that's the truth. That's what I've been studying. After 2030, it's going to be harder to change whatever is there. So like whatever right now, the work we're doing is very valuable, because if we can create alternative realities within our communities, it will stay after 2030. There will be like a separation. That's a lot of people say as well. There will be a separation, like the people that are hyper hypnotized even more than now, because the society we most of us are raised in is very blocky. You know, there's blocks, and you can only, like, imagine a city. You know, there's only certain path you can go to. Like everything, there's towers. You can't go through a tower. Well, there are those alternative groups that create these realities, like the person who decided to create this society the way it is right now. The Romans, perhaps, they decided in the structure, and they've made sure it was respected with laws and regulations. Yeah, like that they created this very dense society that benefited certain individuals in power. And I think this has translated to all the modern civilizations as we know today. And we're just born into it, like being forced to accept it as being the norm and as being what's the best, you know. And unless you kind of challenge reality and you challenge your perspectives all the time, you will probably just go for the path of least resistance, which is just accepting it. Yeah, this collective dream.
I would absolutely agree
Can
with
you hear
you.
me?
I also have seen a lot of that in my own life. This kind of Dolores Cannon, who's a famous hypnotist, she talked about this kind of concept of like the new earth and of the world's like splitting off into different paradigms and people being able to experience different parts of the world, different frequencies. And I think that that concept of Dolores Cannon's work, where she talks about the two parallel realities, is starting to play out in my own life, right? Like I have family members who are so deep into this kind of like fear programming that is put out by like the masses, right? And it's sad because of the way that like that level of acceptance creates so much disempowerment. And then on the other side, there's a lot of people who are like courageously forging their own path forward, who don't really know like what it is that they're doing, but they're finding a lot of success and a lot of like universal support in following this path. And so I think that we're starting to see this kind of dissonance in the world, where some people, like, if you are tuning in regularly to the fear that's being propagated, like that can really sit with inside of your energy field. And on the same side, like if you're really like able to tune into this kind of hope that we have for the future, then that's also propelling and creating this new paradigm at the same time. And I think one thing that's kind of important to distinguish with that is that not giving into the fear doesn't mean like staying ignorant, right? Like it's really easy to not want to know about the scary things that are happening to large groups of people in other parts of the world, but like that creates more repression in the shadow. The shadow is created by shame. It's created by the grief and fear that we refuse to acknowledge. So by people being aware of what's happening in Palestine, by people being aware of what's happening in the Congo, and even what's happening like in our own communities and things like that, instead of just pretending like everything is okay. Like that is the hope, right? Like
Hmm.
discovering the part that is scary with tenacity is how you build hope, rather than like ignoring it. I think that that's a lot of
Yeah.
spiritual bypassing that a lot of people, especially in places of privilege, tend to lean into.
Yeah, and I think that also plays into this the feminine, because the feminine is connected, like you say, with newt, the void, with silence. And I think that is the best tool we have to not give in to our shadows, or like to not avoid seeing them, is to sit with the void, to sit in silence and open up this inner space and see what's there, you know.
Yeah.
You might say like, oh no, I'm not resisting anything, but like there is maybe a part that you're not seeing, and the only way to perceive it is really in silence and in the comfort of your heart.
Oh yes. Just to mirror back what I heard, the comfort of your heart and being able to sit in stillness with yourself is where you're able to um understand those kind of deeper truths that are looking to come to the surface. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Like it is like, I feel like in the what we've been seeing in the past is like action all the time, you
Yeah.
can't stand still. There's always something to learn, there's always something, a war to be fought, that always. And now it's like the opposite that we want to like, it's not the opposite. The opposite is there to rebalance this overactive mind, overactive self, of being hyper materialistic as well. But it's balance that is needed, and sometimes going in the opposite direction in an extreme way is necessary to rebalance it eventually. Like it's
Mm.
not permanent. I think that's also important to understand. And the way I tend to see it is like as a pendulum, so like
Mm.
now we've been in one extreme, and so the fastest to go back to the center, which is the heart, where we want to be, which is the focus of Rosenbrow, my business as well, is to go to the opposite extreme as quick as possible, because time like we are in a time where time is I don't know, it feels like there's an urgency to act, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I don't know, for me personally, I don't fear it, I kind of enjoy it actually, in a weird way.
You
I enjoy
enjoy
the
the
challenge.
process of watching a new world being created.
Yeah, like as weird as it seems, I'm it's a process, the process of deconstruction.
Mm.
And what I don't enjoy is the suffering that comes from it, and that's why the urgency for me and for you to like be aligned and have this ripple effect on our collective surroundings is like urgent. But at the same time, the idea is just for people to reduce the fear, like you're saying, so that they
Yeah.
can just, what has to happen will happen with more ease, because it will happen regardless of if we want it or not. And I think that's what people are going to suffer the most with, is discomfort, because you are attached to your home, to your ways of doing, and now all those new technologies are coming in that are going to disrupt your daily life, and the new financial system, all the things like. So to help people understand that it's part of it, like you're gonna be forced out of your comfort zone, and it's for the best, and the best you can do is breathe, like breathe through it. Put air is the cushion between the polarities, between the extreme. It's what will temper and make it more moderate, so that it's tolerable, and the whatever pressure is inside is going to be able to be evacuated as the changes occur. That is a very, I think, important message for people to see, like, because it will disrupt your life regardless of if you want it or not in the future. It is
Absolutely.
already, but until the war is like in your backyard, you're not feeling compelled. You're a bit in fear, but there's a lot of stuff coming and that we cannot control.
Absolutely. And I think that at the core of what's coming will be a deeper relationship to our close communities and an understanding of the interconnectedness of our world. One of the things that I do see happening is people being very aware of where their resources come from and of how
Mm.
the process of sharing them really goes. And especially I received this download that is a little bit like just uncomfortable, but it's like be wary of people who of especially corporations that give out like basic necessities and treat it like they're doing like the saints works or something like
Mm.
that. Like be very mindful of people who do have power and who do have control over things like water and resources and things like that, and then look at the rhetoric that they're using in order to share something that everyone is needing. I think that by
Yeah.
being able to like just become aware of the energy that people are putting into the way that they're circulating resources is going to be something that will be very like revelatory to a lot of people. It will help them like expand their own consciousness as far as like what is happening right now as opposed to like what a more harmonious way to exist could be. And
Mhm.
then I also think that there's a lot to be said about what you were saying with going back into like the goddess and going back into the silence and the void. In the womb, it's a very wet place, right? Like
Mhm.
when we are being born, it is through like blood and squishy energy, and like the the light that we receive is filtered through the water of life that's carried inside of a human body, which is incredible, right? And so
Mm.
being able to feel intuitively your knowing of I want to make sure that I convey my idea properly. So that wetness can be found inside of every single human being's body with inside of their own circulation of blood, right? So we're talking about the intuition, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about the development of the feminine, and how that actually looks for like the everyday person is connecting into the wisdom that's stored inside of their very like circulatory body, right? Our minds have intellect, but our bodies have wisdom. And so being able to shift out of the like super hyper masculine, like intellect, thought driven, like do, like mental energy that gets up here. Like I'm teaching people how to like sink into the feeling. And it's like a physical action of like sinking back and
Mhm.
feeling yourself land inside of your heart. And then starting to feel like the beat of that drum that's carrying through you, and then the more that you spend time in meditation with your own circulatory system, the more that you're able to tap into like wisdom and also like pain that has been passed down generationally, right? So like a lot of the pain that people are carrying isn't even theirs, right? It's their forebearers and the people before them. And so being able to release this almost like a cocoon, almost like a shell, and re-emerging and saying like this this story is being carried through me because it's remembered by my very cells, because it was experienced by human beings who've been experiencing life for thousands of years, and like I am the next incarnation of this wisdom. And the way that I can truly understand it is by fusing my senses with my intellectual mind and my physical knowing that comes from a deeper place of wisdom that has nothing to do with my learned experiences and everything to do with my innate knowing that's created by our abilities to sense and to feel and things like that.
Mm. Yeah, that's a that is something I've been also like learning by myself. Like, I think it takes courage also to do that, you know, to
Mm,
like go into those parts of your body and because I feel like when you look and you start feeling, it also forces you to slow down whatever you're doing. And it is like, especially for men, I think it is a bit scarier to slow down and like
mm,
look you're feeling. For me, that is part of my own personal mythology as well. I think like when I was young, I was on the opposite spectrum. Like I was feeling nothing. I was feeling everything but feeling nothing. Meaning like I'm a Pisces. I have lots of Cancer in my chart. I'm very, very sensitive, very watery as a person. I always wear blue. Naturally, I tend to go like in water all the time to cleanse. And this was very unconscious. I would like when I was young, take two to three showers per day, and my mom would always have to knock on the door because I was there for like 30 minutes. And I didn't know why, but it was because I had no access to communicating emotions, and like, so I was just feeling them unconsciously, and they would just get stored, and with no access. So that was kind of a big part of my childhood. Is like those trauma were all stored in there, and I
Mm,
was the active child. You know, I was doing sports. I was always kind of expressing myself outwardly, not inwardly, and this created some traumas within that I had to deal with, like in my mid 20s. I started to do the work, and now to go to the opposite extreme. So I feel like I've touched both extremes. Like if you ask me when I was like 16, 17, 18, how are you feeling? And like if it was like a genuine question, I would not know how to answer.
mm,
Would just say good or like I don't know, because I genuinely didn't know if I felt good or bad or what even was an emotion. Like what is feeling good, what is feeling upset, what is feeling sad. I didn't know.
mm,
So I had to learn this language through meditation, through inner work, microdosing. Like it took me a long time to kind of process, and with tarot it helped me to like find the corners of my mind that were still in the shadow, so that I could brush out like the darkness and put some light there. And it took a long time, and until now I feel like even this, it was so weird. Like I didn't express it to anyone yet. Like 3 weeks ago, before going to France, I went to see a shaman, and she can feel, and she used a pendulum to see if whatever it can be stored in the body.
mm,
And she saw that there was something stored in my on my left side back, and I knew it because I've was into extreme sports and stuff like that, and only my left side have injuries. I've broken bones, I have scars, but only on the left side. I have a muscle that's torn on my left back still to this day. So I knew there was something unbalanced, and the left side is the feminine side as well for men. So I knew there was something with that. It's connected with the heart. I had sometimes some spasms in the heart. So I went there because I knew. I told her all of that, and she figured out, like with the pendulum, that there was something. And she does this process of like asking this shadow to what it wants to express, what it's scared of, and why it's like staying there, and released it. And I saw, you were talking about shame earlier. I saw this part of me that was shame of channeling light, like literally, like the Piscean sun often are designed spiritually to channel light
mm,
because of their impersonal nature. But there was a part of me that was ashamed to carry this light, and because it was involved with the ego,
mm.
like, oh, I don't deserve to be a channel of light. And when she did the process, like I started crying, but like a baby, because I was really sensing like it was almost like the two parts of me. I saw it like an armor almost,
Mm,
but like there was a one armor on the right side of my body that was able to channel from my crown and express light, and the other side was in the shame and the darkness. So almost like the light would come and just get absorbed and get neutralized, so it couldn't get expressed. And then when she did the process, the light came through, and then it flooded the room around me, like in the space where I was at.
wow.
And the visual that came with this, and the sensation, like it was felt, like it was so powerful and so beautiful and divine. Like there was no part of me that thought this is about me. And that's the revelation that came to me, is like, no, it's not that you deserve it, is that you are this light. You are to be the microcosmic recipient of the macrocosmic light. You're basically a reflection of it, and you are to be just this kind of a antenna to receive it. So as long as there's shame, you cannot be your true self and shine your true light. And in that moment, I was crying because it was just so beautiful, and like I was I was just feeling in awe with this part of me that was now kind of getting cleansed, so that I can feel worthy of being this channel of light.
Mm.
There is this, yeah, that was a very meaningful experience, and I'm still processing it because it happened not that long ago, and it was, yeah, it was pretty
That's
powerful.
so beautiful. I'm curious to know what you've done since then to kind of integrate that wisdom into your body.
Yeah, like things have been like going quickly, in the sense like the next day I was leaving for New York. I was there for like 7, 10 days actively filming podcasts and like very busy. Then I took another flight to Paris, and then like reestablishing. So a lot has moved very quickly for me in the past 2, 3 weeks. But what I have done to integrate it, I started this daily meditation, and it's quite powerful, and it's very synchronistic. Like I didn't call in this meditation. It kind of happened naturally that I found it, and that I was ready to do it as soon as this process have happened. So it's like a 20 to 30 minute meditation, and it's not a regular meditation where you're just passive. There's a lot of basically it's a meditation to connect with your soul. So you're actively um, really tapping into those three bodies that we described earlier: the physical, the emotional, and the mental, and seeing it almost like a tunnel of empty space that allows this light to come through, and then saying a prayer that invites this energy to come through you.
Mm.
Uh, so you do this prayer, and then there is these seed thoughts that you just kind of plant in your mind, and then you let them go, and then you focus on the third eye, and you see through this soul quality how this seed can grow through the seed, the soul water that you pour on it just by being in this passive state of observing. So this is what I have done to kind of like continue this process of affirming that daily, that this is who I am now. I am,
Yeah.
and like the meditation starts with like that I am the soul. I am not Alex Coma. I am not this and that. I am the soul. The actions of the soul is the actions of my daily life. That's how this first part of the prayer happens.
Wow. That is so beautiful. How did you like you said that you originally when you were younger you felt really disconnected from yourself. Was there something that you did that helped you connect with your soul at the beginning? Was it art?
Yeah, the I think, and because I study astrology now, I've studied my own chart a lot, and I can understand better the mechanisms of it, of my life, and of the beginning of my life. I think, like you can see in Vedic astrology, doshas, which are like different chapters of your life. So like now I'm in my sun dosha, so it makes sense that like the sun is the soul, and I'm connecting directly with it, and it's part of my life, my daily life, and it's part of my daily work I do as well with Rosenbra. But before I this very strong, my sun is in my 10th house. It's a very strong calling. Like I feel
Yeah.
like I've always had this very strong calling, which was like a magnetic force that pulled me in a direction since I'm born. I've always felt that I I don't have to doubt anything. I just have to follow.
Mm.
And this got me into like I some situations I could never have planned, just because I was just like, let's do it. Okay, go. A bit impulsive as well, but it has led me exactly where I had to be. So it doesn't feel like I had to do something. It felt like it was gradually being shown to me, almost like the layers of a of an onion. Like it at first I was peeling, okay, first layer, physical health, working out. Then I was for like a few years, 3 years maybe, hyper focused on health, food, watching all the documentaries on the on food industry and all the pesticide, how pesticides work, how GMOs work, and cutting all those layers in my life until, okay, now my physical body is my temple. And then it allowed me to now consider something else. What about my mind? Is my mind healthy? And then go through these things. And I think that's a good way to do it, like to even teach it, because if you start with the basic, what you see, the material, the physical, the dense, it's easier to kind of start the momentum. And once you feel you're in a healthy body, naturally your mind will want to be in a healthy mind as well. Like they're connected, psychosomatic, somatopsychic. It's, you can work on your mind first, and naturally your health will, you will, you know. So that's what got me into this. And then once this is in place, I started to work with tarot too. But yeah, art for sure allowed me to ask questions directly, because sometimes you ask a question to a teacher, you ask a question to, you know, to whatever you're doing in your life, and you expect, I'm a very curious individual, but art is like a direct mirror. You know, you ask a question and then you paint it, and then you get a direct answer that's very specific to you. You know, it's not like an answer that an author found and that wrote in a book, and then you read it and it kind of resonates. It's no, that's, if you know how to look, like you'll see this mirror and it's showing you exactly the color and the tint that you need to see for you to heal that part of yourself. So for sure, but I'm not saying like it was a conscious decision, like I'm going to do art therapy. But because of my introspective nature, I started to notice that, oh, the symbols I'm doing and putting in my painting are actually revealing something about my inner self. And once I understood this, I studied all my old paintings to understand what I was processing through my art. And then it opened a chapter to construct paintings that would transform my mind. So like more actively programming. And then like I was telling, like this kind of painting that I described in the beginning for me was a new chapter where, okay, now I'm not planting seeds to grow. I'm letting go and seeing what wants to come from a higher perspective.
Yeah,
So
that's beautiful. That makes a lot of sense too. Um, Especially with the way that I don't know if I had looked at painting. I'm an artist too, and I paint a lot. And so I don't know if I had ever realized that it was like me answering my own questions as much as it was me just like having a feverish question, and I hadn't looked at it that it was also the answer. So now I'm definitely gonna have to go back and look at my paintings
yeah,
as the answer as well.
and you have to look at, because sometimes you paint, and because you've been painting for X amount of time, there's a lot of decisions that are unconscious because you've learned them. You don't, like when I mix paint, I'm not thinking about the color. I intuitively am like, I know how to mix any color and it just happens. But because it's automatic, that means there's a lot of unconscious that is involved. And so if you go back and study just like what you've done, sometimes it's hard to understand what is being said. But if you study like the micro decisions you've taken without being conscious of it, why did I put this color there beside this color, or this shape beside this shape, or like, you know, you can understand. And you say you paint a lot of mandala, so perhaps like looking at it can also become like a sigil. It can, like, look at it with the colors you've chosen, and you just kind of close your eyes, imprint this image in your mind, in the passively close your eyes and let go. And because the intention is strong, your environment will start giving you the answer, whether it's through sound, smell, through your body sensation, through images that are like from the third eye, like a visual image. And all these, like if you script it, you write all those little micro things that present to you, it will create a narrative, and it will be your answer in code
Yeah.
that is specific to your mind.
Oh, that's so beautiful. As soon as we're done, I'm gonna go paint. Like it just feels like I
Yeah.
feel it coming through already. Something that you had mentioned that I really want to make sure that we have time to talk about is this idea of new mythology and the role that creators play in creating that. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, the idea of this, like I've studied archetypes a lot and use them in my personal life. And when I get these intuitive like thoughts, that I have to put into the test to see, oh, well, what does it mean? And when in France there was the cathedral, uh, what is it called? The big cathedral in France, in Paris.
The Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame, when it burned down,
Mm.
as soon as I saw this, I was like, it seems fishy, like because like there's only specific parts that burned, and it was like, and there was something that my mind was like, no, there's something there that I cannot believe as being not intentional. And then
Mm.
all of a sudden, like those statues, some of the statues in the cathedral burned down, and they have to change them. They're all sad because these old symbols that represented this aeon, this past, are now burnt all of a sudden by chance. And now they have to replace it with new statues, and this kind of evoked in me the fact that like there is mythologies are there to guide the collective subconscious mind into like the ways, almost the program. It's the program of the ages. So spiritually, like the mythology can, every like part of the world and aeon have their own mythology, and a mythology can use different like costumes and different traditions, but they kind of are just different plays, like the play of the dying god Osiris getting slain, Jesus getting crucified at 33 years old, like Buddha dying at 30. This mythology, this has been the one that we've been using, and the fact of looking outwards for a savior. This has been going on for 2000 years, and it's been programmed this way through the texts, but it's deep inside their minds. And because there's a new aeon, I it's almost through the actions of whatever happened to that church, I kind of understood that there is this play right now going on in the world of like what will be the new mythology. Like through the movies, watch like the narrative in the movies, the new movies, you can start seeing how they're implanting a theme that will be the new mythology of the future that they want us to accept.
Yeah.
And once it's accepted and believed, it manifests. That's just the nature of things. So I thought, well, you know what, this is probably part of my mission, is to help artists understand the subconscious mind, the symbolism, and being channels. Artists are often channels, being sensitive people, helping them open up this channel and connect with the soul, connect with their light aspect, and channel the new mythology. Because the sculptors are the one who makes the statues, who make like the poems, they are the one who actually concretize in the material world the mythology of the mental world, of the physical world.
Mm.
So I see it as part of my mission, is to help artists tap into this and channel intentionally a new mythology that empowers the masses, that empowers the people, and that is not like I told earlier, the 1% kind of putting their veil on top, like they're on top of the masses in this mass hypnosis, and that's the mythology of it. Because it can be in the age of Aquarius, both are possible, both
Yeah.
sides. So
Interesting.
we need to see it, and we need to take action. We just need to trust. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm trusting that that's part of my mythology, to empower people to create the collective mythology and bring to this conversation like this into our minds as a possibility.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I really hope that this inspires people to reflect on their own mythology and what it is that, in their own wildest interpretations of themselves, what are they capable of, and what is it that they want to bring into the world. Something that I want to talk about before I lose my point, and then I have another one. Have you seen Dune?
Yes, I
So
saw.
I didn't watch the second one because I really can't watch war movies. Like there's just so much conflict happening in the world that I don't want to watch it glamorized by Hollywood. But one thing that I found really interesting about Dune, um, my partner is like obsessed with the books, and one of the things that I noticed that was different from the book to the movie was that in the movie, especially in the first one, they use a lot of symbolism of the bull, which is something that you actually don't find at all in the book at all. That was something that Hollywood intentionally put into the movie. And I felt like every time I saw that on the screen, I was like, this is foreshadowing to something that's happening in our larger collective. Because the only way that movies get funded is because it's like a collective vision that is being brought out into the
Yeah.
world. And I think that Dune, so I part of me feels like Dune is like the actual story, and this is wild to even say, but Dune is like the ancient actual story of what happened to Jesus, and like Jesus being a normal human being like Paul, right, who was like born into this world, and then throughout the story what he thought and what he wanted gets turned into something completely different by the people who were like his followers, right? And so when I look at this kind of message and this symbolism, to me it looks like there could be this idea of history being retold. But what I really want to ask you about is what do you think the symbolism of the bull being used by Hollywood in this kind of movie that's about like a religious person coming into power over a lot of other people, what do you think that that could represent?
Well, remind me, because the first movie I've seen so long ago, the second I've seen more recently. But what was the bull like used? Like, what were the shots of the?
So the bull represented his father, like, and they showed shots of the bull right before, like, while they were in the scenes of nobility, like right before his father died. And then they also showed like scenes of the bull to kind of allude, I guess, to like generational power is how I would interpret it. But I was just wondering what you had thought.
Well, honestly, like I can answer the question, but from the bull perspective, but not from the movie perspective, because I would have to rewatch it.
Mm,
But like the bull, I know is a very powerful symbol in many ways. It's connected to Taurus, the sign of Taurus, which is all about stability and comfort. Like the dark side of the Taurus is like, uh, you know, if you have a lot of Taurian energy, you're going to be into fashion, into beauty, but often superficiality as well. And this comes with a kind of satisfaction with the materiality, with the material world, and a kind of passiveness of like, if I'm comfortable, I have my Netflix in front of me, I have my good clothing, my partner looks good, I don't need anything else. And which is a beautiful thing, because we all need this bull energy in our lives to be satisfied and not always like be mentally struggling and suffering because we all never have enough. So that's the best part, is like you're satisfied and you
mm,
don't need more. You can remain as you is and accept life as it is. But the
interesting.
dark side is you're not motivated to do anything else, so you just stay in your comfort. And that's kind of what I'm seeing, with the Carl Schwab was saying, like, you will own nothing and you will be happy. That was his slogan for the 2030, which is like, we're gonna give you your apartment for free. You're gonna get X amount of money for food. You're gonna have all the utilities in your 15-minute cities where you can go see your friends, go to the hospital. 15 minutes from You're gonna be 15 minutes away from anything, but you can't go away from the city, like because of because of climate change. We wanna That is kind of a Taurian thing. Like, we control you, we give you everything, you own nothing, we rent you everything, but you don't need anything. You're going to be comfortable.
Mm,
And this is a very passive and dangerous thing, because then materiality wins. You're just kind of not searching for anything. You just get satisfied. You put your VR goggles and you accept this virtual world. You don't need to put any effort into anything. Your willpower, which is connected with fire, which is connected with spirit, just thoroughly vanishes and becomes tamed.
yeah.
So this is the bull, and it's also connected with the Taurus field. So the taureau in French, taureau is the bull. It is your vital energy that's circulating around you.
Mm.
So I don't know. That's why I cannot connect it to the movie, but it could lead to that, if you maybe you can confirm or not.
Yeah, fascinating. I think that that makes sense to me with like the symbolism of using something that wasn't originally talked about at all in the books And every time I
Mm.
saw it, it seemed like this symbol of power. And when I think about the bull, I think of I read runes as well because of my ancestral lineage. And there's one rune, Uruz, that represents a certain type of ox that had like giant horns that is extinct now, that has just died out because of the world and progression. But
Mm.
essentially, that rune represents a very similar thing to what you were talking about. It's your physical vitality and it's the protection and safety of your home. And it also represents extinction at the same time. So it's really interesting that you had picked up on kind of this process of becoming almost domestic or becoming really docile, right?
Yeah,
Becoming very like comfortable in
yeah.
your setting and weighing out the pros and cons of that because it's right. Like, I think that there are so many people who dream about being able to have like access to a house and healthcare and all these things and could see that being very good. But it's like
Mhm.
making sure that we're not gaining these resources at the cost of our own personal
Yeah,
freedom and our own individuality and things like that, I think is incredibly important.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Uh, yeah, no, you're right. It's the we don't want to be doing that sacrifice.
exactly, exactly. And I also think that one thing I also study astrology quite a lot. And with Pluto in Aquarius, like ingressing between Capricorn and Aquarius over the last couple of years until this year, it final around in November, which in America, it's an election year, which I think is going to have very large global implications in whatever way that goes. Um,
Mm.
this like Pluto starts to go through Aquarius for the next 20 years, starting in November. And so it's very clearly like over this next 20 years, we're going to experience mass awakening and also like a total dissolving of what we had once understood to be truth. And I think that that's just something that artists will be able to interpret in these really really fascinating ways. When we were in COVID and things like that, we saw when people had the time to create, they did. When people
Mhm.
had the time to express themselves, they explored different areas of their soul that they had maybe neglected, right? It took maybe like a month before everyone was like, look at all the things I've knit. And so I think that like my hope with all of this is that our humanity and our creativity and our innovation is the thing that is able to propel us and connect us deeper into each other. I know that you are actually going to be facilitating a retreat, and I wanted to hear more about what the goal of the retreat is, when it is, how people can work with you, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, the retreat. Well, so like we've talked about lots of philosophical thing, and for me, this past year has been like working on my soul project, which is Rosumbra, which is about the other. And the way this seems to be expressed is through retreats. So I'm facilitating my third retreat this coming end of June. And the way I see retreats, like personally, I've never been to a retreat, so I'm not like basing it off anything I know. I'm just creating really from my intuition and from what I can offer, basically. So I like to work with astrology. So I use Vedic astrology because it's more precise to the exact positions of the planets and the stars in the sky. And I look at the dates that I want to do the retreat and see what's the most powerful energy to work with. And
Mm-hmm.
this upcoming Mars is going to be in Aries, and Mars is exalted in Aries. It's the willpower. It's the pure sexual energy that's transmuted to like defend our rights, defend, lead for the future. It's vision. It's foresight. It's all of these things. It's the Kundalini energy that's exalted. So we're going to go deep during this week to understand these energies within ourselves. But I also use Vedic astrology personally with everyone before the retreat to take the time to see where their Mars is placed and how this energy will be activated within them and how they can transmute this into their creation. And because it's also Mars is the warrior, but it's also the creative force within us to create. So creativity comes from Mars. So um, this will be like the whole exploration over 7 days where we'll have like artist talks, we'll have esoteric and deep talks to understand this energy better. We'll have workshops where we're actually doing art therapy and like expressing ourselves and learning from our paintings and having this dialogue. Kundalini yoga, some part of, we're going to do some chanting in this ancient electric factory that's in the middle of the national park. So a lot of activities all based around this. And I also work with the astrological days of the week. So Monday is connected with the moon day. So we're going to do more passive work to understand our unconscious mind. Tuesday, it's Mardi in French, it's Mars. It's the day of Mars. So we're going to do more active work. We're going to do like a workout, a conscious workout in the morning, and everything is aligning with the energies of Mars. Wednesday is Mercury. So we're going to do more intellectual work, communication. There's going to be a workshop that's called Expressing Your Truth. That's part of Mars as well. It's using that, whatever is your truth, and being brave and expressing it, and etc. for the whole week. So that my aim with that is that giving people an experience of conscious living, being integrated in the cycles of nature. We'll be also in the middle of a national park where there's no cars that can go. We're really isolated in between the mountains by a river. So yeah, so that you're immersed in these very conscious decisions that I've taken to plan everything out. And so once you're in it, the container disappears, but the energies remain. So we're dancing in these powerful energies, because I think that's something I've learned is like once you train your mind to learn a system or to be connected at least in those natural patterns, everything seems more intuitive because you can learn more from nature, from observing symbols. Even like birds have symbolism that talk to you, different animals, and you can start seeing the bigger picture of your life even when you're not in the retreat. So I work a lot with intention. Everything is intentional, so that the container is there to allow anything to happen from your own personal mythology or perspective, whatever you want to call it. So that's going to be the next retreat in Spain. It's 7 days, like in a half, you can say. And yeah, sorry?
That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Like, I love the intention that you put into that whole process. If somebody wanted to join and participate, how would they do that?
So yeah, now on roseumbra.com, you can click on the tab that's called retreats. You have all the schedule there, the prices, the facilitators. We're going to be 3. There's a somatic therapist, a trained somatic therapist that's going to lead workshops as well, and yoga every morning. There's another artist that is a visionary artist that's also going to facilitate a few workshops, and me. So you can see all the details of that. And you can sign up directly on the website. There's a promo going on until the 1st of June. I don't know when this podcast will be released, but before the 1st of June, there's an early bird promo, so it's a bit cheaper. And instead of having like a 30-minute Astro Tarot virtual session with me, you get 90 minutes. And you get this superfood mushroom mix that I use every day that has all the beautiful ingredients that allow you to not have to crash during the day, and for your immune system, your brain to all be optimally, like performing optimally all day long. So it's a brand that I've been working with for the past retreats, and yeah, it's just very aligned with the values. So this comes for free too when you sign up. So
Very cool. I'll make sure that I put all of the links to that in the descriptions of where all of this information gets posted.
That's beautiful. Sweet.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I feel like we covered so many wonderful dynamic things. I love everything that you had to say about the awakening of the goddess. And I think that that's where I want us to be able to really close this out, is emphasizing the importance of learning how to trust your own wisdom, right? Like, and being able to learn how to express your wisdom and learn from it is the way that we're going to create these like massive global changes, right? We've talked about a lot of large global themes that are happening. We've talked a lot about what it feels like to connect with different people going through different experiences throughout the world. And ultimately, like the really grounded thing that I hope people can remember and take away from this is that you are actively participating in creating the new world. And
Mhm.
so, especially during this period of time where things are so uncertain and like it feels like the threads are really loose, choosing to
Mhm.
believe in the unconscious, or choosing not the unconscious, but choosing to believe in the whispers that your soul is guiding you down, even if they are a very unconventional path, is not only going to help you, but it's going to help every single person who interacts with your work. So I
Mhm.
guess like from people who are really embracing this energy of the intuition and of the soul, I hope to inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, and I have something to say to finish too with the divine feminine that I've kind of discovered recently with this painting and my studies. Have you heard of the Kabbalah?
Yeah.
So this tree of life, you can see the archetypes where they fit in. The divine feminine is actually connected, to my surprise, with Saturn. And
Mm.
Saturn is the planet of darkness, of bonding, of restriction. And it took me a long time to understand how this is connected with the divine feminine. But the idea that I got is that we receive the light, and to create, we need to restrict the light. And this contraction of, uh, imagine the womb when you give birth to. There is kind of this pain that comes with birthing. There's this restriction. The mom has to go through a lot of restrictions to birth a child. There is a sacrificial aspect to creating, and to creating through the universal womb, to the cosmic womb. And so this being said, like, there is a beauty to be disciplined and to accept pain in this shift for the greater good. It's the sacrificing of the self, or the ego, of your own self needs. Sometimes it's not good, but sometimes it's good to be able to create something that's even bigger. So I think that's an important aspect of it that for me adds a lot of nuance and a lot of yeah, I don't know. This is an aspect that I have not heard before, so I thought it's interesting to mention.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that. Getting comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? Welcoming the
Mhm.
discomfort zone as the area where we know that we're growing, and really allowing
Yeah.
ourselves to slow down when we feel that discomfort and check in with inside of our bodies and understand like what is really coming up for me right now? What is this resistance that I'm feeling? And how do I gain awareness over that feeling so that I can truly learn from what's being um what I'm
Mhm.
channeling, because I do believe that everyone is a channel, right? Everyone is
Yeah.
connected to the world soul. It's just about how how willing you are to put aside the programming of reality to interpret that world soul.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also connected with the ocean. The ocean is the cosmic womb in the material, and the ocean is the most destructive thing ever. Like, if you see a storm, it'll like wreck a whole city like in one instant. So don't neglect, like, there is whatever there is a there disconstructing your own self, your soul, your identity. It's part of the process of purification and of like, embrace every aspect of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. This my last kind of thought here is the alchemical hermetic principle of solvet coagula, which is a Latin saying that essentially means to completely dissolve in order to create something new. I believe
Mhm.
that might be the loose translation, but that's like the general principle is that, and you think about a butterfly, the butterfly has to become complete goo inside of its chrysalis before it reemerges. And so
Mm.
this alchemical process of completely releasing everything that you thought you knew about who you are and the world around you in order to fully embrace and surrender this idea of newness, and
Mm.
having that inner light and that inner hope to create this beautiful like butterfly out of ourselves is what we're all working towards. And so when that
Yeah,
process of deconstruction happens, know that it's because we're doing something right, and that it's not like some
yeah,
kind of divine
exactly.
punishment or anything like that.
That's what I was saying. Thanks for reiterating it in a more concise way. That's a well put. I your imagery and everything.
Thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, it was such a pleasure to connect with you. I hope to talk to you more in the future. I really, really love your work. I love your perspective, and I would love to attend one of your retreats someday when I'm able to.
Yeah, that would be great. And thanks for creating this container for this to happen. And yeah, I hope someday too, because I'm filming my own podcast too in person. Well, it would be good to have you on at some point, so you can
I
give
would love
more of
that.
your insights as well.
Yeah, I would love
So
that. Just let me know and we can set that all up. And for the people who have taken the time to listen, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. Thank you so much for the feedback that you continue to give me. All of your guys' questions about consciousness and reality and yourselves have really, really allowing me to guide this in a direction that makes sure that we're providing a lot of value and a lot of clarity to people. So I really just want to give the biggest shout out to all of the people listening. And I look forward to having a lot more of these conversations in the future.
yeah,
Well,
thank you so much.
thank you so much, and we will see you guys soon. Thank you.